Did you know that Ford mortgaged even its own logo to survive the 2008 financial crisis? Or that the GT40, the most American car in history, was actually more British than American, and the new GT was built in Canada? And what about the fact that a Koenigsegg that broke the world speed record had a Ford Crown Victoria engine? Get ready, because today we're going to go through 101 facts about Ford that will completely change the way you see the blue oval forever. 1. Ford was the first major company to adopt the 5-day workweek in 1926. Henry Ford believed that well-rested workers made fewer mistakes. You can thank the blue oval every Friday afternoon. 2. The Ford logo is Henry Ford's signature. Not exactly his signature, but the Ford script typeface was created by a company engineer based on Henry's personal handwriting. It's been on cars for over 100 years. 3. The name Mustang has two origins. Co-designer Najjar wanted to name it after the P-51 Mustang fighter plane. The board rejected the idea and chose the name Torino because the CEO loved Italy. When a rumor surfaced about his alleged Italian mistress, the name Torino became an internal problem. Najjar resubmitted Mustang, presenting it as the spirit of American wild horses. The board approved it. The Mustang owes its name to a love affair that no one ever confirmed. 4. The Mustang Mach-E's rear engine has a sign that reads, "Electric ponies live here." A wink to anyone who has to open the hood to see it. 5. In 1965, Ford was the first car manufacturer to offer a key that could be inserted from both sides. One of those inventions so obvious, it's hard to believe someone actually had to invent it. 6. Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were best friends. When Edison was dying, Ford asked his son to stand guard and collect his last breath in a bottle. He did. That bottle is in the Henry Ford Museum. 7. Ford invented the moving assembly line in 1913, 500,000 Model Ts a year, the first mass-produced car and the first affordable one. Before that, a car was a luxury item. 8. The Model T was the first car in history with the steering wheel on the left. 9. The Model T was only sold in black. Black paint dried faster, which was crucial for the assembly line. Ford summed it up. Any customer can choose any color they want as long as it's black. 10. The first car Ford sold was an $850 Model A. It is owned today by Bill Ford, the founder's great-grandson. 11. Ford never advertised the Model T, only word of mouth. 15 million units. 12. In 1928, Henry Ford built Fordland, a city in the Amazon rainforest, to produce cheap rubber. They started with the world's largest arson fire to clear the land. The only rubber experts willing to go knew nothing about rubber. Ford rationed food to keep the workers efficient. The starving workers mutinied, and the American staff had to flee into the jungle. Ford sold the land to Brazil. The city still exists. 13. In 1914, Ford used Spanish moss as seat filling because it was very cheap. The moss attracts crop mites, a biting insect. After complaints, the company recalled all the cars in 1915. The first recall in automotive history was due to a moss cushion infested with mites. 14. Ford invented sequential turn signals in 1964. 3 bulbs in the Thunderbird's taillights that simulated movement. They had no safety function. They were purely for aesthetic purposes. It took Ford a year to legalize them in all 50 states. 15. Before founding Ford, Henry Ford left his first company due to disputes with partners. That company was renamed Cadillac. Ford unwittingly founded his luxury competitor. 16. 17. Ford built the Apollo 11 Control Center and installed the unit that relayed Armstrong's words. The astronauts continued driving Corvettes. 18. In the late 60s, Ford developed the Torino Talladega, a standard Torino with an extended nose, which won 11 races in a row. Dodge secretly responded with the Charger Daytona, aided by its rocket division. Yes, Dodge had a rocket division. Ford knew this because they had spy planes flying over the test track. During testing, the Daytona deliberately got off to a slow start because they knew they were being spied on. In the race, it was the fastest car the sport had ever seen. The 60s were a different era. 19. The chassis of the GT40, the American hero of Le Mans, was manufactured by the British company Lola Cars. That's why the original GT40S had right-hand drive. The new Ford GT was built in Canada. The most American car in history has little that is truly American. 20. The Auto J, the fastest version of the GT40, killed Walt Hansgen during testing. The supposedly improved version killed Ken Miles months later. The cause was never determined. No one knows what caused one of the world's best drivers to lose control. 21. It took Ford 35 years to build a successor to the GT40, not for lack of trying. They built 7 prototypes, each worse than the last. Bored during a meeting, head designer Theodore sketched a GT40 and realized that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. When a new CEO wanted to start from scratch, Theodore painted the prototype in classic livery, connected the headlights, and parked it in front of the CEO's office elevator. The doors opened, and the GT was waiting, illuminated. Approved on the spot. 22. Carroll Shelby believed the name didn't matter, that the car made the name. To prove it, he asked a mechanic to count the steps between the production workshop and the racing workshop. 347. They rounded it up to GT 350. The most powerful version was called GT 500 because 500 is greater than 350. 23. In 1969, Ford had too many unsold GT 500s. They took them back to the factory, fitted them with a spoiler, convinced the government to classify them as new 1970 cars, and resold them. The government agreed. All the 1970 GT 500s were refurbished 1969 models. 24. On the brink of bankruptcy in the 1980s, Ford raised $3 billion and brought together the best engineers from Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln to build the Taurus. It was a spaceship, smooth lines, a blocked grille, and flush headlights. Flush headlights were illegal. Ford took the Highway Safety Administration to court and asked them, "Do you want old-fashioned headlights, or do you want to comply with consumer laws?" The government caved. The Taurus was launched in 1986 and became America's best-selling car. Ford saved the company with a single model. 25. The Shelby GT 500's engine is called the Predator. No further context needed. 26. John Cena bought a Ford GT and couldn't fit in the seat because it wasn't adjustable. He sold it for $1.5 million, $1 million more than he paid. Ford sued him because the contract prohibited him from selling it for 2 years. They reached a confidential settlement, paying for a car you don't fit in, and then getting sued for selling it. 27. The first Mustang was sold by accident. Chassis number 1 was sent to a dealership in Canada for display. Captain Stanley Tucker fell in love with it and offered to pay the full price. The salesman was too kind to refuse. Ford found out but couldn't do anything because it was a legitimate sale. 2 years later, when Tucker went in for a service, the dealership offered him a new Mustang in exchange for his. Tucker accepted. The original went back to Ford. 28. 29. The Ford F-Series has been the best-selling vehicle in the United States for 48 years, for 43 consecutive years. One is sold every 53 seconds. 30. The first monster truck was built in 1979 on a 1974 F-250, nicknamed Bigfoot. The world's most absurd vehicle was born as a modified Ford van. 31. Ford was contracted to produce Willys Jeeps during World War II because Willis couldn't keep up with demand. The Ford version was called GP. The word Jeep comes from those initials. 32. During transit testing, engineers would drive it at high speed on public roads past 2 a.m. The police knew this and would approach to chat and see how the project was progressing, not to issue tickets. The 1960s were a different era. 33. The Ford Bronco uses the same tires as the Jeep Wrangler, which are called Goodyear Wrangler. Ford paid extra to double the name so it only reads Goodyear. Having a competitor's name on your car isn't a smart move. 34. The Ford Ranger has a cup holder shaped exactly like a container of potato chips, complete with the corresponding icon. It also has "Wrong Way Up" written on the underside of a piece that you can only read if you turn it upside down when it's already too late. 35. In the 1980s, Ford Cosworths were so easy to steal in the UK that insuring them was nearly impossible. Ford lowered prices by 30%. A security company organized a contest. Steal the protected Sierra Cosworth in under 20 minutes, and you can keep it. The first contestant drove it off in minutes. Nothing more was heard of that company. 36. The Focus RS's drift mode was born by accident. An engineer adjusted the rear torque distribution. The car drifted, and the engineers started having fun until someone remembered they had work to do. Months later, the manager mentioned it to the global head of engineering, who said to add it as an official feature because it looked good on the market. Simple as that. 37. Ford's RS 200 for Group B in 1986 had a mid-engine all-wheel drive car with 450 horsepower and was slow, unbalanced, and erratic. The bodywork was made by Reliant, the company that produced the three-wheeled car. The RS 200 was involved in an accident that killed 3 spectators and single-handedly ended Group B 38. Ford built a car with a soybean plastic body in the 1940s. Cheap, environmentally friendly, and biodegradable. It never went into production because of World War II, which was probably for the best given what happens to biodegradable materials over time. 39. Henry Ford sued a newspaper for defamation, demanding $1 million. The court awarded him 6 cents. He collected it. He was the second richest man in the United States. 40. The Ford Pinto was a good car. Reliable, comfortable, with nearly 2 million units sold in 4 years. The problem was the fuel tank, which was too close to the rear axle. A rear-end collision would puncture it and create sparks. The Pinto became a ticking time bomb. It killed 27 people. Ford settled 117 lawsuits out of court for more than $400 million. Discontinued in 1980. 41. The Firestone tires on the first Ford Explorer couldn't handle its weight and blew out on curves. The faulty front suspension did the rest. The Explorer rolled over. More than 200 people died. Ford and Firestone blamed each other. The 95-year relationship between the two companies ended. Millions of vehicles were recalled, and the scandal made tire pressure monitoring systems mandatory in the United States. 42. In 2013, Ford's Indian division published advertisements showing women gagged in the trunk of a Figo to demonstrate its capabilities. Real public figures were included. Ford apologized. The car involved was the Figo. 43. Ford established a sociological department in the 1920s that was, in practice, a spy agency. It inspected homes without warning and fired employees for marital problems. Women could only work if they were single mothers. Men, only if they had a wife at home. The department disappeared in mystery. Ford never spoke of it. 44. When Chrysler and GM accepted government bailouts in 2008, Ford rejected them. 2 years earlier, they had hired Alan Mulally, who mortgaged absolutely everything Ford owned, including the Blue Oval, to raise $23 billion. They sold Land Rover and Jaguar, restructured, and survived without government assistance. The boldest move in Ford's history was mortgaging its own logo. 45. Ford introduced the keypad in the Thunderbird in 1980. 45 years later, in 2025, it will no longer be standard. It cost them €50 per car. 46. The 2005 Koenigsegg CCR, the world's fastest production car at 387 kilometers per hour, used a heavily modified Crown Victoria 5.8 engine. Koenigsegg used Ford engines until 2012. 47. In 1972, Ford drove 2 standard diesel transit vans around Monza for 7 days and 7 nights without stopping, refueling on the go. 168 hours at full power. They only stopped when they broke the record for the longest-running diesel engine on a racecourse. 48. The Sierra RS. 500 Cosworth has the best win percentage in motorsport history, 84%. It's not the car that has won the most races, but proportionally, no one can match it. 49. Ford owned Volvo from 1999 to 2010 and manufactured refrigerators through its subsidiary Philco. The world's largest pickup truck manufacturer also made refrigerators. 50. 51. The Ford Bronco Raptor has the Raptor logo reversed on the rear spare tire so it's visible in the rearview mirror, so you always know what you've got. Of 52. The Ford Focus ST had a dedicated heater exclusively for the rear windshield wiper to prevent it from freezing and sticking to the glass. A small functional luxury that solved a real problem. 53. Ford offered the Foxbody Mustang with a police package, radios, lights, and a 275 horsepower V8 engine. It became popular with highway patrol units. The sales slogan was, "This Ford chases Porsches for a living." It didn't say it catches them. 54. In the owner's manual of certain Fords, the name Jenny and the telephone number from the 1980s song appear hidden in the entertainment system instructions. 55. The Mustang's turn signal sounds like a galloping horse. Ford engraved the words "ground speed" on the speedometer, a nod to the aircraft name that never caught on. 56. Ford built the Falcon GT-HO for the Australian Bathurst 500 and called the HO handling option instead of high output to avoid government intervention. They won in 1972. The next version was intended to exceed 250 kilometers per h on public roads. The government halted the program. Only one road-legal prototype was ever built, owned by a dentist. 57. The Mustang, Mach-E, and Bronco don't carry the Ford logo, except for a small oval on the Bronco's door. Ford wants them to be independent brands. This is harder to maintain when they also manufacture the Ford Puma. 58. 59. The Ford GT, 7 failed prototypes, a bored designer who scribbled the solution in a meeting, a manager who wanted to scrap the whole thing, a prototype parked in front of an elevator, and in the end, a car that John Cena couldn't fit in. 60. Lincoln was the first to include air conditioning as standard equipment at no extra cost in 1971. The 1974 Continental Mark IV was the first car with rapid defrosting. In 1980, it was the first with a fully electronic instrument panel. 61. The Explorer features the Chicago skyline on the passenger side, where it was manufactured, and the Detroit skyline on the driver's side, where it was designed. The Michigan Central Station, which Ford purchased and restored, is also depicted. 62. In 1987, Ford released an ad featuring an F-250 towing a Chevy uphill while pulling a Dodge and a GMC behind it. The ad generated a lot of buzz. Chevrolet responded with a video showing a Silverado towing a Ford and another Silverado uphill, while a third pickup truck towed another Ford. Ford moved away from that type of comparative advertising after that. 63. The first Ford Explorer was so dangerous that the trailer rental company U-Haul refused to rent trailers to owners of that model. That policy remains in effect. 64. In late 1972, Ford manufactured too many Mavericks. They had thousands of unsold units. They couldn't find cheap storage. They leased 25 underground acres from a nearby limestone quarry and stored the cars in a cave for a couple of years. Ford still uses that cave system to store vehicles. 65. The fifth-generation Mustang was originally going to have independent rear suspension. At the last minute, an executive convinced the director to use the Falcon's axle because it saved €100 per unit. The rigid axle, the power, and the low price created the Mustang legend and the crash videos. €100 saved. 66. Ford holds the record for the most recalls in automotive history, 400 million vehicles since 1966. This year, they have recalled more cars than GM, Honda, Nissan, and BMW combined. 67. The deadly shudder is a high-speed vibration that has affected Ford trucks since 2005. It is still active. Ford refuses to issue a recall and has won all the lawsuits. Balancing a truck is more difficult than going to the moon. 68. The F-150 has an American flag hidden in the dashboard because it's only manufactured in Michigan and Missouri. Canadian-made units don't have a flag. Ford considered the flag important, but not that important. 69. The Mustang GTD is a street-legal race car with over 800 horsepower. Only 1,000 units were made. And as an added option, you can pay to ensure no other owner can choose the same color. A factory-optional color monopoly. 70. For Ford models from 2010 to 2012 with the sync system, if the music volume automatically lowers when you press the brake pedal, it's not a malfunction. It's a feature that can be disabled in the settings. We mention this in case anyone has been avoiding braking to avoid missing a song's drop. 71. The SVT Lightning was the fastest pickup truck in the world in 2003. SVT tried to put the same engine in the Little Ranger. It twisted the chassis. They reinforced it. Then it spun out of control. They put on wider tires. It still spun out. They canceled it. There's a Ranger out there somewhere that nobody knows how to drive. 72. The Raptor R has small 8s on its decals. The V8 is back. 73. The new Mustang has an electronic parking brake that, in drift mode, works exactly like a hydraulic one. Pulling it activates it, pushing it deactivates it. That justifies it not being a simple button. 74. The steering wheel of the new Transit can be tilted to be used as a work table when the vehicle is stationary. 75. Ford made 7 driving video games between 2000 and 2008. They were all bad. 76. In 1965, Ford created the wrist-turn steering wheel for the Mercury Park Lane, which allowed maneuvering with a twist of the wrist. GM copied it months later to avoid being left out of the wrist-turn steering market, which didn't yet exist. 77. The 1961 Ford Giron was a 2-wheeled concept car stabilized by a gyroscope. The gyroscope was never built. The prototype was fixed to the ground. In the 1960s, there was more tolerance for creative failure. 78. The Thunderbird reboot had semi-electric seats, lower half electric, upper half manual. No one has satisfactorily explained the logic. 79. The Crown Victoria is the best police car of all time. Many departments continue to use it until the law forced them to replace it. 80. Harry Potter's flying car was a 1960 Ford Anglia 105E, white and turquoise. Rowling chose that model because it was her first car. 81. In 2025, the Ford Mustang will be the last American muscle car in production. The end of a genre that defined car culture in the United States for 60 years. 82. Ford has had my key for over 10 years. Speed limit, traction control lock, and maximum volume for when others are driving. The volume function is the hardest to challenge. 83. The Bronco makes a popping sound when the removable doors are moved without all the screws being properly tightened. A warning for forgetful owners. 84. The new Mustang has remote acceleration. It's activated by pressing unlock and then lock with the engine running. The car accelerates automatically from a parking spot. Its exact purpose isn't entirely clear. 85. Modern Fords automatically lower the air conditioning volume during hands-free calls to avoid background noise. It's such a logical solution that it's surprising it's taken so long to become standard. 86. Ford has been including virtual owners' manuals in its infotainment systems, with video tutorials and interactive explanations. The manual inside the car, accessible from the car. All manufacturers should do this. 87. 88. The original Ford Taurus was electronically limited because it was faster than the Mustang 5.8. A 4-door station wagon that put the sports car in the lineup to shame. Ford considered that a problem. 89. The Ford Jete has asymmetrical exterior rear-view mirrors. The passenger side mirror is positioned a few centimeters further back because the A-pillar is so wide that it would otherwise be unusable. Ford knows this. The Jete is asymmetrical from the factory, and there's little that can be done about it. 90. Ford has been manufacturing F-Series trucks continuously since 1948. Over 40 million units. The best-selling vehicle in American automotive history. 91. In 1914, Ford was the first major company to adopt the 8-hour workday and the 5-day workweek. The modern weekend began in a Michigan factory. 92. The Raptor R has the logo reversed on the spare tire so it can be read in the rearview mirror. The Bronco has "Pick Me Up, Baby" under the fender. The F-150 used the same front bumper from 1959 to 1979, 4 generations without changing the part. 93. To manufacture the Model T, Ford installed a sawmill. From the scraps, he produced charcoal under the Kingsford brand. Kingsford remains one of the best-selling charcoal brands in the United States. 94. Ford is the 5th largest family-owned business in the world. The Ford family retains 40% ownership of the company. One of the most recognizable brands on the planet remains, a century later, a family business. 95. Carroll Shelby put a sticker on the Ferrari that Ford was using as a case study. Someone had to design it, print it, and stick it on perfectly level. I'm sure they measured it. 96. The Bronco emits an audible warning if the removable doors are not properly screwed in. A brand that knows its customers. 97. Lincoln was the first manufacturer to include air conditioning as standard at no extra cost in 1971. Before that, air conditioning was an optional extra that had to be paid for separately in all cars worldwide. 98. The Ford SVT Lightning was the fastest pickup truck in the world in 2003. The SVT team tried to put the same engine in the Ranger. The Ranger's chassis twisted. They reinforced it. Then it spun out of control. They put on wider tires. It still spun out. They canceled the project. Somewhere out there is that Ranger that nobody knows how to handle. 99. The Ford Mustang GTD allows the buyer to pay a supplement so that no other owner can choose the same paint color. This color monopoly as a catalog option is an absolute novelty in the automotive industry. 100. In 1971, Ford built the first commercial airplane with a composite structure. The same company that makes pickup trucks also built military aircraft during World War II and monitored the Apollo 11 landing. The Blue Oval has a much broader history than a pickup truck might suggest. 101. The Ford Mustang. A name born from a love scandal. The first car sold by accident. A police chaser of Porsches. The unwitting creator of a crash video genre. A car that John Cena couldn't fit in. And in 2025, the last American muscle car in production. 60 years of a single idea that was never as simple as it seemed. And those were 101 facts you probably didn't know about Ford. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. See you in the next video.